Is there still sex in the city? Author Candace Bushnell is famously known for her book, which became the iconic series Sex and the City. Candace Bushnell's latest book, Is There Still Sex in the City?, takes us to the next level. Life in love, marriage, children, divorce, and bereavement all factor in, as well as the very real pressures women face every day in an attempt to have it all. And Candace Bushnell joins us live. Candace, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So I have to say, I have been such a fan of yours since I believe Sex and the City debuted right as I was finishing up college. And I completely fell in love with the narrative of the series.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
I'm sure you hear that a lot, but as I've been able to grow and the characters grew and changed and everything, so many of us, I think, who were, hardcore fans wanted to know what sort of became of the characters as time goes on. And I feel like this book, in a way, kind of picks up there.
Well, in a sense, I think it does in terms of age. It's not a sequel to Sex and the City.
No, that's very true, yes.
It has all different characters, but the feeling that I had when I was writing Sex and the City, it's the same feeling where I felt like this is women in uncharted territory. We really haven't seen these women. Mm-hmm. And indeed, this really is the Sex and the City woman kind of 20 years later from where she started in the 90s. Mm-hmm. So, I was the Sex and the City woman. I was single. I had my Mr. Big. We broke up, but I found my Mr. Bigger. And I had my Sex and the City friends. Most of them ended up getting married and having what I call the reproductive lifestyle. You're partnered and all of that. But then, 20 years later, things change. And a lot of women find themselves single again. For a lot of women, it's choice. Mm-hmm. So it really feels like, yes, it is that same kind of Sex and the City woman, but now she's in her 50s.
Yes, and it's also, I would say, much more serious, even though the series was great and it was light and it was fun and it did touch on some serious issues. This book actually does touch on some very difficult subjects that women face, everything from divorce to...
Yes, divorce and bereavement. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of that is... It's just the reality of being in these times. I mean, I think in the Sex and the City years, yes, Samantha did end up, she got cancer, in one of the episodes. But as you get older, people start to deal with, in a sense, like real stuff. It's heavier stuff. Mm-hmm. There are parents who... A lot of parents, a parent might pass away. Mm-hmm. That's a reality for a lot of people when they get into their 50s. A friend passes away. And these are, so your 50s it's about, you kind of have to find yourself again, but you also have to learn how to deal with loss and move on. And it really is like a passage. And I feel like I went through that passage. And, I mean, there were some times when I was, just because this tends to be me, I guess I'm sort of dramatic, but, I mean, there were some times when I was really down when I was writing this book, and my friends really helped me. And I feel like I came through something where now I do feel, my spirit feels rejuvenated. And that's really what it's about. In some ways, it's about getting your mojo back.
We go very much into your life and the lives of your girlfriends. And then also you drew on interviews that you did with a lot of women who are in similar circumstances.
Yes, I did. Well, when I start writing a book like this, originally, I think I was thinking of it as something that had a different narrative, but I was in this world and all kinds of things were happening to me and my friends, dating things that really surprised us. For instance, younger men being interested in older women. Mm-hmm. And so then I start to see a pattern. I start talking to people, and before you know it, everybody has this story. It's happened to a friend. It happened to a friend of a friend. Mm-hmm. And so you know, there's nothing in the book that really just happened to one woman. It happens to a lot of different women, you know, in slightly different variety of ways. So that's really my research, is going out there and you know, sometimes being the guinea pig myself when I went on Tinder.
Yeah.
Which was interesting.
I think it's interesting for everyone who ventures into Tinder.
Yes. I have to tell you, when I did that piece on Tinder, I had not lived full-time in the city for maybe 3 years, or maybe 4 years, because I had gone and I was living in the country. When I came back to the city to do that piece, I didn't even know about Uber. I mean, everybody was like, "Oh, you're on Uber, you're on Uber." I'm like, I missed this. And I also missed, you know, Tinder, because I guess that started in 2012. And I was nervous about it. But the app itself changed the patterns of dating.
Yes, definitely.
So that's something that's interesting. And what's happened with the dating apps is they've become so prominent in people's minds that a lot of people feel they can't meet anybody
without
in real life without a dating app.
I was going to say, do you find that people even remember how to interact with each other minus the dating apps?
You know, that's a good question. You know, that's a very good question, because I think that idea of, you know, people approaching people in person, you know, approaching a stranger, we don't do that so much anymore. Whereas, honestly, I mean, that used to happen so much. I mean,
well, that's what it definitely came across in the earlier books, certainly in the series, that was the New York of the 90s, but that's not anymore. We're here now and not here.
Exactly. But you know what? We're here, but then we're also on Instagram. So in a sense, in a way, everybody is in like 2 or 3 places at once.
I do want to make sure, though, that we do have a positive vibe to this, because even though the book does deal with difficult subjects, there are some happy endings. Yes,
and I mean, for me, the book is really, it's really funny. And you know, again, it was really about kind of getting through this passage and coming out on the other side. And I did end up meeting someone while I was writing the book.
Yeah.
So, and I was really thinking, maybe I'll never, you know, be with anybody ever again. But it's, you know, and I've had a lot of friends who they've gone out there and they've started dating again, and they're happy.
Okay. Well, so the fact that you were able to successfully find love again, was this through the dating apps? Was it through the old-fashioned way? Or
it was actually through the old-fashioned way. I did run into this person at a party that I went to with my ex-boyfriend, which is kind of interesting. But I guess the sort of full circle, only in New York, folks, is that he's friends with Chris Noth, who plays Mr. Big.
Oh,
yes, and that's how I met him.
Okay, so then with this friendly network, then, is that something that you found that also worked for some of your other girlfriends?
Yes, I mean, I always, you know, I always think like a friend network is really helpful. And I would say, and I do still say to people, you know, if you want to meet somebody, tell everybody. And because there's nothing that people love to do more than fix somebody up. You know, I think it's like, if you can fix, and I fixed up a couple of people, and one of the couples got married. And so if that happens, you always feel like, oh, I have, you know, I get a little star, you know.
Of course. Well, so are there any, because of course, even with, you know, the happy endings and the difficult subjects to work through, there's also laughter in the book. And so what are some of the more out loud chuckly moments that come to mind for you?
Oh, gosh, well, I mean, I think that some of the scenes with the Cubs are really hilarious. Cubs are they're young guys. I mean, we have this idea of, you know, an older woman interested in younger guys. It's called a cougar. It's a little bit derogatory and a little like questionable. But that's not the case. These are, I call the women catnips because they're just going about their business, but find that they find that really the majority of the guys who are interested in them or hitting on them are inappropriately young, you know, 20s or maybe early 30s, which it isn't inappropriate, but in a lot of women's minds, they couldn't even picture such a thing. So some of those were funny. And then it was also very funny when I went on a date with the opposite, an older gentleman who said he was 68, but turned out to be 78.
Oh my goodness. That's a whole different level.
That was a different level.
Age fibbing.
Yes, and then I had my Tinder experiences where I thought I'd actually found the Tinder unicorn, you know, that one extraordinary guy, and we went out 2 times, and the third time he stood me up and turned out to be exactly what everybody said.
Oh, well.
But I really had to laugh.
I think you do have to laugh, especially if you're going to be on a dating app like Tinder. Well, do you think that there's a changing nature about the way that people talk about being single? Because there used to be a time when, you know, it was something almost to be ashamed of after a certain point.
You know, that's changed so much. And really, what's interesting to me is how many women actually are quite happy being single when given the choice. And I mean, that's what I always find is, you know, that's really the interesting part of this. And also, I think we are going to, you know, it could be that in the future, we probably will live, you know, maybe more and more as single people. You know, we may have times when, you know, we're in a reproductive time and, you know, maybe that's when we're going to partner with someone. But I think in the future, it may be more flexible instead of so, you know, we have such a rigid idea of what relationships can and have to look like. And yet they don't necessarily have to look that way. You know, if you're not raising a child, for instance, you know, you know, not every relationship has to look like that.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think that's what's interesting.
Do you think that, because of course we've had the Me Too movement and there's been a lot of pushback against what a lot of people found to be problematic behavior, particularly on the part of some men.
Right.
Do you think that has also changed the landscape in a way that's for the better or for the worse?
Well, you know, I don't work in an office.
Okay.
And I haven't worked in an office probably since I was 25. But, you know, one of the things that I do really remember about working at offices is how much of that kind of Me Too behavior goes on. You know, it's everywhere. I mean, it's in every occupation, and I think, you know, we've seen a few high-profile men, but, you know, we haven't seen the guys out there who are, you know, in charge at a restaurant or something who are harassing employees and that kind of thing. So you know, I mean, to me, the best thing is that we can talk about it. Women can be aware of it. And, you know, we can get at least some kind of idea of, you know, what really is this problem. I mean, before, nobody talks about it. It's there.
Yeah.
You know, and I do remember I've made career choices so that I would not be hassled by men. I think other people have too. And I have made conscious career choices so that I would not be hassled by men.
Well, listen, Candace, I want to thank you so much for joining us on the show. Definitely thank you for this book because it is yet another step in the ongoing saga of Sex and the City. For more information on Candace Bushnell's latest book, Is There Still Sex in the City?, you can visit our website at metrofocus.org.